and I'm driving, so excuse me. Yeah, I'll be parking in about 2 minutes.
That's fine,
I
Russ.
need it. Okay, anyway, there's a meeting Friday with Geneva E.B. Thompson, who's the Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs for the California Natural Resources Agency, and Calla Rose, and then Asher, who was immediately interested when I showed him the email proposing the alliance, and Laurence de Bourret, who's the founder of Land Healers. So it'll be 5 of us, and I'm going to try to get Irenia Quitty from excuse me, Quitty from Robinson Rancheria at Clear Lake. So there'd be 6 of us, and it's just a half-an-hour meeting to touch bases. Calla Rose and Geneva have such horrendous schedules, but they're actually the ones who wanted the meeting, which isn't too surprising. This very much aligns with what California has in mind. As I told you at the earlier meeting, they're actually giving land back to the Indians. And when I was looking into Indian reservations for another project about 10 years ago, it's horrendous. The tribe at Table Mountain, they have 5 acres. So I think they're going to get a big lump. And I actually asked, let's see, Geneva, the Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, sent a notice out to the few of us that were going to be there, and had the agenda, and asked if there's anything else that we'd like to see. I, by a nice coincidence, had been able to catch the meeting between Geneva and Wade Crowfoot, who's they gave a meeting for the public about tribal affairs, and they talked about several pertinent things, one of which was that they were giving more land, and besides giving more land, they were trying to arrange for the stewardship of some land in California, the stewardship to be taken over by Indian tribes. So that was all good to hear. Yep.
Yeah. That's great.
And after that meeting, I'll have a lot more to say, but I expect it to go very, very well. I expect the state of California to be able to put up some money, and that they're anxious to put up some money. So we'll see if I'm right or not.
Do you see a direct role for the Eco Restoration Alliance in these discussions? Obviously, we're pleased to be even on the periphery of it, but is there some connection for us to develop that would be useful to them or to us?
You're going to be, Land Healers is going to, have you ever taken a look at the website for Land Healers?
It's landhealers.org, but I'm on my way now.
Okay, it's landhealers.org. When you go there, you'll see Laurence, who put the thing together a few years ago. I actually helped her a little bit. At the time, she was already doing things with the Hopi Land Healers that she had put together. The first thing she did with them was to restore the sacred springs and the Hopi reservation. So the elders love her. A lot of people love her. Let's see, she actually got funding to take 15 Hopis who'd never been any farther away than Phoenix, which is about a 2-hour drive, took them to Marrakesh. And the 15 Hopi youth at the COP 24, whatever it was, the Hopi youth showed the Morocco youth and other youth that were around how to do rain catchment structures with rocks.
Boy, that's a great story.
Yeah, Laurence, well, and Finian Makepeace was there from Kiss the Ground. He videoed it, so it's not lost to history.
You know, Finian Makepeace's name comes up a lot, but in this context, I find myself wondering whether that's an Indian name, Makepeace.
No, I don't think so. He's very
Okay.
Irish.
Well, the first name
I've
is
known him
clearly
for a
Irish.
long
Okay.
time, and I've never. Pardon?
Yeah, no, I got that. So let me ask you
Yeah.
again, Russ. How do you see us tying or supporting?
Okay. Well, I kind of. Excuse me. I'm trying to do a couple things at the same time here. Let me get one thing out of my wallet, and we'll be ready to go. Okay. I need to get somebody into a Costco, and then I'll be able to calm down
All
a
right,
little
just
bit.
let us know when you're back, Russ. We'll shift back to Jess and Marissa.
Okay. Well, it'll be 30 seconds, but yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay. So Jess and Marissa, welcome to our world, right? There's all of this stuff going on. And I'll tell you, I have found it remarkable and interesting how much is going on, how much there is to be learned just by arranging for these meetings and updates. As I think you know, as I think you've been invited, we had a town hall meeting today, in which we had another, I don't know, 15 or so members of the Alliance just updating each other on what all was going on. And these various initiatives, and I guess at this point, I'm close to declaring our Indigenous Involvement Initiative, the famous III program, as one of the initiatives of the Alliance. Because we've got a lot going on there, but as you can see, it's all in this promising but early mode.
This
Have I
work,
lost?
yeah, I'm just going to react. I think the work is absolutely promising. There's a lot of great stuff happening in California. And I guess we're interested in supporting this work specifically around the Indigenous Coalition building. I think we could offer some guidance because I think gathering Native and Indigenous folks together around this kind of work can be very sensitive. There's a lot of alignment, obviously. But yeah, I think there could be some support that we might be able to provide. If anything, I could also call upon other folks in my network who are doing similar kinds of work in California, connected, for example, to the director of the environmental office for the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash, Teresa Romero. There's folks up here in Pomo country that are doing amazing work and land back kind of restoration. So would love to be a part of it. And I'm just curious in terms of like the governance structure, is there any intention or plan with the Ecosystem Restoration Alliance to kind of center Indigenous leadership, or is it just going to be a side kind of group that's part of the overall collective? I'm just curious about plans for the structure there.
I would say the latter. The latter. We want to be, as you said, we want to be very sensitive. When you look at the landhealers.org, you'll see a page that has 9 ladies on it. All of them have Indigenous blood. Some of them are full blood. It gives a bio for each one. They're all very impressive ladies. Laurence right now is gathering up another at least 9, so it'll be a second page of very impressive ladies in the near future. And they, they're speaking strictly about U.S. Indians. There are 3 or 4, I think, of those 9 are, very used to organizing intertribal projects. So I just had the idea and I want to get the ball rolling, but I certainly don't want to control anything. I want to kind of back out of it as soon as I can and just go up to Clear Lake and plant some trees every once in a while.
So, Russ said
as far as
the
the ERA, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
You can go ahead.
Okay, as far as the ERA, land healers will join, and I could see that, once the alliance is put together, once the Alliance of Indian Tribes, as it's getting found it, I would think they would love to be part of us, because we can almost certainly offer some additional funding. Once we get rolling and people find out about us, we can offer additional funding that'll let them restore their ecosystems more quickly. The idea is to have every acre on every reservation fully restored.
So Russ said the latter. You've forgotten the question, but I haven't. But I think he meant the former, which is to say they would not be off to the side, except in the sense that in some ways we're trying to build a network in which everyone is off to the side, and the center is more like mycorrhizal fungi that just sort of facilitate all sorts of synergistic connections among these groups.
Yeah, I'll go with that, John. I agree.
So we're not trying to build a really strong central organization. We're trying to build a robust ecosystem. And in some ways we have delusions of adequacy. We think we ought to be able to help make the kinds of connections that would facilitate and then be able to amplify the various synergistic collaborations that develop among our people. So Jess, I really appreciate your offer. In fact, I'd invite you to say a little bit more about how you said you thought you could offer some services to the Alliance in terms of liaisonship to some of your connections. Do you have more to say about that?
I do. I actually have a few things I'd like to address. And again, really appreciating the intention behind this work. Tremendous opportunity here to bring folks together around ecosystem restoration, which is absolutely critical. I would say where I could offer guidance and folks in our network could offer guidance is around languaging. So for example, when we're describing Indigenous people and mentioning how much blood they have, that's usually not a good thing to do, because that perpetuates settler colonial paradigms around blood quantum, and that could trigger someone and they're out, they're done, they don't want to be a part of the group. Also, non-Indigenous folks referring to Native people as Indians is something that is a bit sticky, and a lot of Indigenous folks are not okay with that, for example.
So I appreciate that. So I heard, I guess it was you used the term Indian, and so I slipped into it. But so that's really interesting. So are you of Indigenous descent?
I am, and I also tread lightly. I tread lightly because I was not raised on a reservation. I have a lot of privileges that other Indigenous folks do not have. So I take a step back, but that's part of my desire to connect to this work. I also have Black ancestry and heritage. Essentially, I am America. Let's put it that way. So that's where I'm coming from, is like, having learned a lot of this, having close relationships with folks who are doing this work already as Indigenous people working on restoring their own lands, we could offer, liaisonship.
I hear you.
I'm also curious about the naming of the group. Was an Indigenous group kind of consulted to name the group the III, I think? I'm forgetting what the acronym was.
No. I made that up as I said it. It was a joke.
Okay.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
There's no name for it yet.
That's right.
Gotcha.
There's no name for it.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm just very curious because, again, I'm really excited by the potential here, and I'm really trying to emphasize the point that the relationship building is very sensitive, and we want to do that in a good way. And I know you all are on that same page. So just wanting to be clear.
I appreciate that. I want to raise you one. Just as I said that the ERA is not trying to build a monolithic, centralized organization, I describe myself as a catalyst and am not particularly interested.
Oh,
you lost it, John. All righty. See if we can get him back. Hold on.
Hello? Is everything okay?
Yeah, we just lost connection with John. I'm trying to see if I can do anything to clear it up and get him back.
Okay.
Are we okay?
I can see you on the second one now.
Hello, hello?
I got you, John. Anybody else hear him?
All right. Can you hear me? Yes, you can hear me? All right. Okay.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was saying, my limitations and my lack of aspiration to be sort of an organizational manager are going to be clearer and clearer as this thing develops. I see my role as a catalyst and one of many conveners, but I can tell you biodiversity for a livable climate that you've already heard about. And I think that the real strength of this is going to be the extent to which people who seem to have the skills and the inclination, and I'm looking at you, Jess, just because of what you said today, will feel really free to step up and say, I think I can lead this piece of the puzzle. And I'm going to ask you to let us know if we language something wrong or if we set you up for failure. But I think we're quite interested in seeing young people and people from a variety of backgrounds, not just providing liaison services, but providing real leadership roles within a servant leadership framework. It's a servant leadership duocracy framework. So the point is, you know, I will occasionally invite people to step up to do something, but the truth is, right now, and in my past organization, which is still going quite well, you know, no one's being paid, with the singular exception right now of young Cole, who's working round the clock minimum wage. So we can't hire, we can't fire, but if we're lucky, we can inspire. And then things happen if someone steps up and says, here's something I can champion. And when that happens, it's very greatly appreciated. And in biodiversity for livable climate, there are a number of really, really effective young women, I'd say probably 5 years out of college, who are now doing just great work. One of them still in college. And it's really very gratifying to see the extent to which all of us older white guys and older white women and older other people are just cheering them on and supporting them. So long-winded way of saying, Jess, you have an open-ended invitation to tell us what you think we should do, especially if you're able to say, and I will try to get it organized. Clear? Okay, good.
What's
So
coming?
I'm sorry, Marissa.
What's coming to mind for me, given all of that, John, is we are running our own 3-year campaign, and yeah, we are also kind of, you know, working around the clock. So I think the work would maybe have to happen within the work that we're already doing, unless there are additional resources to support some kind of consulting that we can offer you around how to build those Indigenous relationships and solidarity in a good way. And we can probably also take some time to think about it and see what kinds of opportunities might be mutually beneficial. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, but I feel like we're in a place where we can't really extend much more at this point without resources to support that.
Right, as I say, that was an invitation and an encouragement, not a request. But Marissa, what you just said is quite fair. I can tell you, amazingly, within Enable, the other organization that has somewhat of the same character, which I have helped lead for the last 8 years, you know, we now have a small Enable fund with about, currently it's got a record high of $60,000 in it. And we keep encouraging people to step up and say, look, here is a service we can provide for a fee. In the case of Enable, we don't have as many takers as we want. So if again, these are not decisions I make. These will be collective decisions, especially when we have a collective decision-making process in place for the ERA as we do for Enable. But a proposal that has a price tag with it and deliverables, I think would be really quite welcome, especially for something like this. And so you should feel free. No one will take offense. I'm not guaranteeing anyone's going to fund it, but I think, and especially since we don't have any money right now, but I think we will have money. And frankly, I think a friendly offer of that sort would help us begin to develop the decision-making governance policies that will make this happen in the future. So it's just to say, nice thought. Feel free to think about it.
Okay, yeah, I really appreciate that. That's really helpful. I know how hard it is to do this work as an organization, and Jess has been a teacher of mine as well as we do this with our whole Transition US network of local groups across the country, transforming the organization to uplift BIPOC leadership in a good way it's a lot of work, but it's super important. Russ, I think it was either Russ or John in the email thread about the Indigenous solidarity and organizing, pointed out some things about how, doing this work on sovereign land is going to be easier. That's a big point that Naomi Klein makes in her book, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate. Like, if we want to tackle climate change, we have to prioritize Indigenous sovereignty. So all it is just to underscore how, yes, essential this work is, and it does deserve resources to support it, because that's what it will take to be successful. So on that note, also just thinking about your governance structure, again, the more you can center Indigenous leadership and think about prioritizing resources to support Indigenous work, the better, as you're designing your structures for allocating funding.
Prioritize.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, a couple of things. Paula Phipps, who you may not have met yet, but she's one of the head Bio for Climate people. She was at a lecture, and the person who gave it was, one of the things that he told her afterwards was that the best land in the United States to restore their ecosystems is the tribal lands. And I'm not sure if it's just because of the less red tape, but I think it had a lot more than that going for it. As far as putting things together, the land healers, I think, will be able to do that very well. I would appreciate, maybe you could just, if there's a little bit of time at the end, give us a little lesson on how to be careful with what we say. Oh, but very, very importantly, I talked to Laurence this morning. She and I have been talking for the last few days, and she has, she's in Morocco, and this actually kind of goes to, it could go to Transition US, but it could certainly go to what Jessica and her husband have planned for northern San Diego County. The mayor of Tata, which is has about 19,000 people in Morocco, he and Laurence have been talking quite a bit. He's going to give her 2 parcels of land for 2 eco restoration camps. Now, the purpose of these camps is very important. They're going to be used to train the local youth how to do water catchment structures. They're going to be able to go out and earn money right away from landholders around Tata, and they'll be able to go all over the country, except for by then there'll probably be other similar eco restoration camps teaching people how to do water catchment structures. So when you do the one in San Diego, you might even keep that in mind. You can teach people how to do it. Hopefully something like that's going to start in Merced within 6 months or so. I'm going to, well, I'll stop talking, but lots of possibilities, but keep in mind that that'll be one thing you're teaching anyway in San Diego, and you could even ramp it up to be part of the income structure as far as people coming and learning something and going out and being able to make money.
I love that, Russ. That's really exciting. And that's definitely a part of our plan, is to include training, opportunities for land restoration, obviously, and kind of blur the line between a resort and a permaculture camp, and see what we can create there. Yeah.
So are you familiar with ecosystem restoration camps?
Am I familiar? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
An organization called Ecosystem Restoration Camps.
I am. I actually, thank you to Russ, was able to chat with John Liu, and we're hopefully going to link up in Mendocino in a few, maybe next week. I'm not sure.
That's great. So, you know, they're an example of this kind of thing. They're also, I'm proud to say, members of the ERA. And that process of sort of creating opportunities for learning, cross-pollination, and replication, I think is very much what we're trying to do. We're also trying to figure out how do you make use of digital platforms to do this, the analogous thing on virtual soil, if you will. But it's all a work in progress. I did want to mention, since I know this is an interest of yours, there's a group in upstate New York. There's a Black woman who wrote a book, I think, called Farming While Black. And it's, you know, this book and this project? Okay. I think I reached out to her when I was just trying to figure out what we were doing, but it reminds me that we should go again, because they're a very interesting group. They're doing great work and an example of what we're all trying to get everyone to know about and everyone to do. I think that the stories, I think should be stories of things that actually happen, not just stories of things that are going to happen. But this scenario where you've got Native Americans from the American West collaborating and doing training in Morocco is a great example of a story that just by telling the story, it expresses so much of what we're trying to do. So, Russ, I would encourage you to pop a note into our mailing list, which I believe Marissa and Jess know about. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if Judith Black or Judy Schwartz pick it up, because it's a really good story.
Okay, well, I'll check with Finian and see what footage he has. It's probably he probably put together at least a 5-minute piece. Laurence would know exactly what he has.
Okay, very good.
I had a couple more points before we wrap up, just briefly. So Soulfire Farm, which you mentioned, they are doing such amazing work. And Leah Penniman is extremely hard to access. We tried having her as a speaker for our regenerative community summit that we held in the fall. But I just saw their metrics for last year, and they reached over 160,000 people, mostly through online courses that they offer. So that's again a reason to do kind of anti-oppression and anti-racism training, so that you can build those relationships in a good way, because that's really important to them, and they're really picky about the kinds of collaborations that they prioritize. And then the other thing I just wanted to speak to with something you mentioned earlier, Russ, that I think captures kind of the highest vision for this work. The potential of what I heard was something about maybe land back from the state granting land. But there's also a piece around—
You did hear that.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. And there's also a piece around just Indigenous-led public land stewardship. So public lands being returned, and also other public lands being put into Indigenous stewardship, whether or not it's ownership. But I live in a place with a lot of degraded BLM land. You know, we need people tending that, obviously. So my highest vision is that sort of partnership. And one of Jess's friends, allies, who spoke at our event a couple weeks ago with Samantha Wright from Project Regeneration, but Julie Cordero Lamb, I'm tired, is that right? Okay. She was saying how like her group, which is a are they Chumash, Jess? A
Yes.
Chumash collective of land stewards, traditional ecological knowledge holders. They were able to just demonstrate to all the government agencies that they work with that they really know what they're doing. So having that kind of traditional ecological knowledge, obviously, pairing with universities and things like that, that can document and evidence and provide that sort of like proof that they know what they're doing, and then being able to steward large tracts of public land. That's the vision I want to move towards.
Great, thank you. And you're right, it's all of great interest. I want to turn it around. What could the ERA do for the likes of you? I mean, I do understand that you're trying to figure out how to raise money and you'd like to have resources in order to do more of what you want to do. And I've suggested that that is not beyond the pale. Are there other synergies that you would be looking for?
Yeah, you go ahead, Jess. You can go first.
I was just, I'm interested in what you have to say, Marissa, but I was just thinking again about our week of action in the fall. And one of our goals is to inspire groups across the country to maybe get out and do some land restoration work. If there are already projects that we can almost have as little flags on the map that folks can sign up to volunteer, especially with COVID making things so uncertain, being outdoors, doing that kind of work together would be great. And one of our goals around the week of action is to get major media coverage, which I think you're also trying to do with the X Prize kind of application. So I could see some alignment there.
That's interesting. Please hang on to those thoughts, because I think that's right. And there's enough time between now and then that we might get it together to do it if we keep it in mind and then build towards it. So do you have any connection with the Fridays? You've got me self-conscious about my language. I was going to say Fridays for the Future Tribe. You know, the whole Greta Thunberg movement.
So indirectly, I have some connection to that, indirect connection to Extinction Rebellion folks, some Sunrise connections. And yes, just as a general rule of thumb, it's kind of not in vogue or appropriate to use tribe after things like that. Just it's a friendly reminder. But yeah, we do have some of those connections available.
I asked for a couple of reasons. One is I've thought about all of those young people on the street who are performing a terrific service. But if one of the things they could do on the street is also change, for example, some facts on the ground, you know, patches of bare dirt, and leave a lasting trace, that's a lot of people who could actually have significant impact and begin telling a very different story. Besides, everyone else is just doing blah, blah, blah. They could say, and we're creating facts on the ground. I don't know how to get that going, but it's something to keep an eye out for. You know, I think one of the interesting differences between what we're working on and what they do is that, you know, the focus on greenhouse gases is a lot less actionable than the focus on degraded landscapes and eco-restoration. You can really change something, and once you recognize that climate is just the sum total of all of these little somethings, it really does put you in a different position. The second reason I asked that question is because I wanted to, one of the things that's emerging from this is that we have these town hall meetings. We have now 2 or 3 other work groups that you should be aware of. One has to do with sort of trying to think through financial models for eco-restoration. And another has to do with, if you will, try to fill the gaps in the scientific modeling of how ecosystems and climate interact. And then there's the town hall meetings where basically we're talking about what is the alliance and how are we going to clarify our goals and our aspirations and turn them into actions and contributions. But I've had several people say that each of these eco-restoration groups has been doing their own wonderful work, and they're just embracing the opportunity to compare notes with each other and talk across these groups. To me, that's a scandal, although it's obviously a great thing that we're beginning to fill that gap. But I'm wondering, among these groups that you just mentioned, Sunrise and Extinction Rebellion and Transition, et cetera, that seems to me to be a similar collection of groups. How much connectivity is there among them? I mean, did they get together and co-conspire in, as allies?
I know that there's some overlap in terms of membership within these groups. I don't know if they have formal think tank kind of sessions with one another, but I think that's a good point about mapping the interconnectivity across our networks and really seeing what we're actually working with would be really powerful.
Yeah, Paul Hawken wrote a book in his early days, whose book title I always forget, but you may know it as you knew the other one. And I can't even come close to remembering, but basically the premise was there is a global movement that's larger than any movement in human history, and no one knows about it because, thank you very much, Marissa, you've done it again. Blessed unrest. But it was true then, and it remains true now, that it's still a very weak network of non-unified action. And well, there may have been a good reason for that 20 years from now. I mean, the truth is we're now routinely having face-to-face meetings with people scattered all over the world, and sparks fly in the course of those conversations. So I'm beginning to think that not that we're the only people to be using internet collaboration tools and Zoom, but just trying to create ongoing collaborations and to facilitate them across these organizations may turn out to be one of our core functions. I'm making this up as I go along, as are you, but if you see some ways of sort of helping provide some coherence so that we can reach critical mass, you and we and a few other people suspect that the powers that be are gradually losing their power, and the powers that don't be, if they can have it together, are going to be there to pick up a lot of pieces and put in place an alternative way of working, partly because the failures of Plan A are going to become more and more apparent. The question is, are we going to have a coherent Plan B in place?
Yeah. On the coalition building and convening piece, I want to share this network coalition that we're a part of. It's loading really slowly. The New Economy Coalition is focused, I mean, they're rooted in economic transformation, but obviously that's tied to our ecological crises, and a lot of the groups that are part of the New Economy Coalition have a strong ecological lens, as we do. But this is a coalition of, it may be more than 300 groups now across the country, very aligned, and a lot of them are building power, economic and political power, through the models that they use, the solidarity economy. So that's, again, community land trust, which I brought up last time. I'm a big advocate. I'm working on starting one here, and that I would love to see as one of the funding models for this work. But also co-ops, let's see, energy democracy, participatory budgeting, and I think there's one key model that I'm missing, but these are some of the essential pieces. And
I've learned a few groups and organizations and meetings, but I've also learned that Marissa is way ahead of me in sort of understanding those connections and what's going on. So hopefully I'll get to do some homework. I've recorded this meeting. I'll be taking some notes from it. So, and Cole is taking notes now also. I think I asked you last time whether Community Land Trust, I did ask you, has any, I don't know what the right phrase is, investment opportunities right now. And I think you mentioned that you were working on some titles and some permits and you're sort of trying to cook that up. But I do think that's the kind of thing that when we have an alliance controlled fund might well be a nice mechanism for kickstarting a lot of these things.
Yeah, I was just on a call about regenerative funding governance, actually, which might be, I could connect you with one of the folks who's leading this effort, Ben Roberts. He's
You know,
somebody who I've worked with.
you could, and I would welcome
Okay.
it. So please do.
Okay,
But you can also, you can connect me so that I remain aware of what's going on, but you could take the lead in helping us formulate that. Let me make sure. Has Kyle invited you to, where are we in terms of inducting Jess and Marissa and transition into the Alliance, Cole?
I think the main issue is that the meeting time doesn't work for us because it's the same time as our staff meeting that we have every week.
Yeah, I
So
believe
the-
everything else, you guys
Work-
should have access to the intranet. You should have access to the group messages. And then, John, that was actually something I was going to talk about in our meeting tomorrow, is figuring out how to reschedule meetings or figure out what time works best for everyone. Because we had
Okay.
talked about that in the past, but never quite came back around to it.
Right.
And it's
so in terms-
possible that we can reschedule our staff meeting. We're bringing on, we have some turnover happening right now. People, one person leaving, one person joining. So in a month or so might be a good time for us to shift our staff meeting if needed.
Oh, well, that's great. Keep us posted on that because I'd really like to have you involved. And as I said to Jess, I would like to see both of you picking up leadership roles and pieces of what we're doing together and helping us pull this together.
And as it is, you can catch the second half of the meeting, the last hour, even now.
Okay,
That's right. Typically, we do introductions and then we get down to the topic du jour. So
Okay.
feel free to come halfway through. Anything else for now, ladies and gentlemen?
I have one more question, and this may have been answered last time, but how many groups are currently part of the Ecosystem Restoration Alliance, or how are you measuring the participants?
Yeah, no, I think right now we have about 50 organizations and about 60 nameable humans. And frankly, I think we're picking up 4 or 5 a week right now, just on momentum.
Which that would probably increase after our submission deadline for the X Prize. We've been limiting our interviews because we're working on that right now.
We have, although, you know, it's interesting, so we went through this very accelerated recruiting push prior to registering as a team for the X Prize. I basically wanted to be convinced and to be convincing that we had a credibly substantial group before we declared ourselves in this competition. And we grew very quickly and it was absolutely exhausting and stimulating. And I said, wait a minute, now we've got lots of people. We've got this X Prize deadline. Let's slow down the recruiting. But I got to tell you, this continual stream of conversations like this is the best continuing education program I've ever had. I get a lot out of these meetings. And synergies do emerge from it. So we are going to be sort of rejoining the recruiting, but one of the concerns is I think we are going to want to figure out more of our governance processes before we get too big too fast, because as you know, it's difficult to manage large groups of people. So that's sort of one of the one of the places we are right now. We've got sort of a lot of shared goodwill, and while we haven't had any momentous decisions to make for the most part, we managed to sort of drive towards consensus even when there's been disagreement. When money becomes involved, we're going to need another layer and another degree of governance. We had one that works within, and we have one that works within Enable. Whether that one will simply transfer to here, or whether we're going to have to, for example, just to give you an example of the challenge, is it going to be one person, one vote, or one organization, one vote, or 1 acre, one vote? Or I would like to think, is it not really going to be voting based? I'd like to think that it's going to be sort of a more Quaker or indigenous American powwow kind of a thing, where things will go through under near consensus. But as you know, orchestrating that requires a resilient culture and practice. So here we are.
Yeah, that is all part of our work as well. And you're giving me a lot of ideas of different kind of themes that we could maybe work into a proposal for you. So yeah, thank
Great.
you. This is
I sort of feel about what I'm worrying about, but if it's making sense and you think you know how to make it less rambling and more actionable, by all means, that'll be great.
cool. Great.
Anything else?
I feel very complete, and I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to reconnect. And Russ, if you have any updates or anything you'd like to share or need support on, please feel free to reach out. You have my number as well, but I think we'll be putting some time reflecting on a proposal like Marissa mentioned. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
So
thank
listen, you can't attend the meetings, but you are now official members of the towns. Sorry, did we introduce them in the agenda this week, Cole?
No, they were introduced.
All
I
right.
did put them on an agenda in a prior week, and we did discuss it.
So I'm delighted to report that you've been blackballed by no one. Therefore, you are now official members of the Alliance. Cole will follow up and get your biographies and your smiling faces on our people page. And you should, please, keep an eye on the mailing list, which you can subscribe to, and you will momentarily be able to post to. You can introduce yourself there. And frankly, there's some very good discussion going on there, and you could develop the kind of proposal or the kind of conversation that we're having that way also. Obviously, we're going to have to balance synchronous meetings, which don't scale very well, with asynchronous meetings, which have potentially fewer real-time sparks, but they're hopefully more stable. So great to talk to you. It will be great to be typing to you, and to be continued.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Bye,
Russ, thanks for bringing. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
All righty.
Hello, Cole.
Uh,
Okay. So where are we? So I had a glitch with grain.co today, so I'm not sure I've got recordings for both halves of today's meeting, but I'm looking into it. I think it will probably be okay. I should stop this recording.